Well, today is a real privilege. We finally get to meet Lynn Radford. And Lynn's been around, a duration she'll tell us a bit about, but long enough to be involved in so many projects that Red Deer has stuck up his hand and said yes to. And as soon as they do that, the next phone call is to Lynn Radford. Say, now, how do we do this? So we have a delightful privilege and opportunity here to learn a little bit firsthand about some of those projects that she's been involved in. But let's go back to, Lynn, when you came to Red Deer, how you came to Red Deer, and why you stayed in Red Deer.
Well, thank you very much. So it's really interesting. I grew up in Edmonton, and my husband grew up on a quarter section in Manitoba, the youngest of 11 kids. And he happened to be in Edmonton working, and that's where we met. And, dated, got married, and made a couple of pit stops in a couple of other communities before we settled in Red Deer. But Red Deer became the perfect combination of had a little more going for it, like what I was used to with some amenities and some city things, and of course still had that hometown feeling that my husband grew up with. And so just like our marriage, the city girl meets the country boy. We kind of looked at Red Deer as being that type of community.
Roughly when would that have been?
That was in 1986, and I think the population was 48,000 at that time. And we had a young family of 3, soon to be 4. And we moved here, and my husband opened a business, Truckline Parts. And we continued he continued through the business world. I was formerly a teacher, but once we got here and we had the 4 children, I felt that my call was maybe to be at home more. And so that's what I did. And I did books for quite a bit of the company at home, and then eventually, as the company grew, we got our own bookkeepers and that sort of thing. And so I did more of an auxiliary role with the branding and all of the marketing type of things for the business, looking after the accounting or the accountant type things. But then I took on, I had the homemaker role. And of course, through the homemaker role, what do? Well, you become involved with schools. You become involved with whatever sports your child chooses. And that's really how I got my kickoff. And probably my first big one, I participated in the Red Deer Ski Club. We were part of at that time we had skiers, we had the gymnastics club, we had hockey players, we had figure skaters, so there was involvement. But the one that really resonated with me was the Red Deer Gymnastic Club. And in those years, we were taking our daughter, Jamie, to the facility that was down in Riverside Park. And all it was a warehouse. And as I was on the board, and we were doing bingos and we were engaging in things, and I was watching how this facility was, 2,000 kids a year was going through this facility, and it was just bursting at the seams. But the thing that really resonated with me, and it's a story that I tell quite often, is that the tumblers, in order to compete their proper tumbling run, would have to start out in the parking lot, run through a man door, and start their tumbling run, or they wouldn't have had enough room to do the tumbling run because the facility wasn't big enough. And so they'd be out there in the wintertime, and we'd have to put carpet out there so that they'd have a track that they could run through, But that's what you did, right? You improvised. Mm-hmm. When I started looking financially at the books, I saw that we were paying quite a bit of a rent. It was the going rate for rent. Jack Ingalls was our landlord, and he was excellent. But I recognized that we could be making mortgage payments for the same thing. So that's when I approached the board, and I said, I think we need to get our own building, and I think that actually the municipality should help us with that. And the municipality, so gone through all the things, yes, you go talk to the municipality, and that's another funny story. So I walk in, and I I said, I made an appointment with Lowell Hodgson, and I said, Lowell, I think that the municipality should help the Red Deer Gymnastics Club build a building. You have built hockey arenas, you've built swimming pools. It's now time for this to be built. And you could just see, and I said at the time, it's just such a funny story. I said at the time, I said, and I want that piece of property right over there, down there. And that happened to be the piece between Notre Dame and Hunting Hills, where the Collicutt Center is now. And I'd like it to be on that piece of property because I think that's the right location for it. And you can see Lowell, he is such a diplomatic, we laugh about this, Lowell and I still do. Such a diplomatic person. He says, why don't you go down the hall and just talk to my associate, Greg? and I could see that it was kind of the shuffle, right? I was getting the shuffle. But anyways, I prevailed. And what happened? But 2 years later, the Collicutt Center was born, and the Red Deer Gymnastics Club. We built it, and the commitment we made as a gymnastics club that we would pay them $1 million. We gave them a down payment on the $1 million, and we would do it in month and yearly installments for so long, and they went along with it. It was a win-win situation. They understood that they needed to start diversifying in what sports that they supported, but of course you had to have some sort of buy-in from the group, and that's what we did. And our first big chunk of money that we got was we decided to do a casino. And so I watched kind of the pattern of the casinos, and every group was losing. So we took the insurance, but I said, I think we want to stay. We don't want to go into, at that point, you had the option of whether you went into the group funds or not. And we said, no, we'll stay out. And didn't we have a banger of a night, a casino weekend, and we made really good money, which we got to all keep. And that was probably the nest egg that started it. We did fundraisers galore, and we raised quite a bit of money to put against the deposit. I think when we finished, we had like $300,000 already paid of the $1 million. So yeah, so that's how the gymnastic club was born. And then once you do something like that, as you had indicated one time, Bob, is that once you got to be known to be a success, then other opportunities seem to come in your way.
Especially if it's a part of a volunteer program.
Oh, totally. And it's interesting. People don't understand why I do this, and honestly, I've never had a dime in all my years to do this. There's never been a paid position, but the feeling, the overwhelming feeling that you have of pride to know that you actually, it's my time, I can actually say, I think I made my community a better place than I found it. And not that it was a bad community to begin with, it was just that saying, I've made it a better place. And that the gymnastics club is one of them. I mean, I went from the gymnastics club, and then pretty soon that we had the 98 Alberta Winter Games here, and the Winter Games was successful. I was just a minor planner, like a mid-level type planner in that. But that and then the gymnastic club happened, and then the municipality started approaching me and saying, okay, we have this opportunity for the 2000. First it was the senior games in 2003, which we did not get the opportunity. That was kind of a missed opportunity that we had talked about. But in 2006, we did get the Alberta Summer Games. And once again, a resonating success. I was very fortunate. We did a really good job on sponsorship. We were able to put really big legacy money back into the community. And that was unheard of in those days, that an event would actually perpetuate a big legacy, a monetary legacy that you could put back to the groups that helped you volunteer and things like that. I'm a big believer in spreading out the wealth. Not if it's a sporting event, not just sports would get those kind of legacy dollars, but cultural or social justice groups, because everybody volunteers. It's not just the sport people that volunteer for sport events, or same with that.
Well,
so
we often forget that.
Often.
They're not the high profile events, but it still takes the same commitment.
It does, and it takes from all walks of life.
And you also have to know when you get involved in some of these projects that there's enough people that you can reach or contact that will support it.
Exactly.
Because it takes a team.
A team. You may be, it's interesting. I read a quote this morning just before I come from Alexander Graham Bell, and he says, I have got the credit for developing the phone, but it's the people that take it farther that I get the credit for, but it's their work that has taken it farther, and that's how I feel. I've got many accolades over the years, but behind me was a strong team always that believed in what we were doing and believed in me. And that, to me, was the success. The success wasn't myself. It was the whole team.
So very true. Were there any other games that you'd like to tell us a bit about that you were involved in?
Oh, yes.
'Cause, when we talked about that, the list
Well,
got
it's
rather
interesting.
long.
Yeah, it was interesting. Well, then after the 2006 games, then I get a phone call and said, we got this confidential thing that's going to be happening in Red Deer, and we would like you to run it. Oh, okay, what is it? And I'm thinking, I'm probably done for here. And but it was the Olympic torch relay, and it was at the Red Deer
nice.
had been chosen as a celebration site for that. Well, I don't know if you recall that night, but it was magical. It was we couldn't have got better weather. We had the largest per capita turnout across the country, next to actual Vancouver the day of it. It was unbelievable. 20,000 people were estimated to be at ours. And the organizers were overwhelmed. They said they had never seen it. And the stage was set up at the Westerner parking lot, and we know how big that was. That was jam-packed. Then we had buses running, coming from shopping centers. The cars were jam-packed in the shopping centers of people getting on the buses to come down just so that they could feel that atmosphere of the Olympic torch in in 2010. And it was a phenomenal one. And so, at that point, then I was on the Alberta Sport Development, or Alberta Sport and Parks and Recreation Provincial Board, which is Alberta Sport Connection, eventually it turned to. And it was during that time that I recognized in some of the information I gathered that in 2019, Alberta was going to get the Winter Games. Somebody in Alberta was going to get the Winter Games. Now, if you think back, in 1995, we tried to get the games, the Canada Winter Games in 1995.
Ooh.
But we lost out to Grand Prairie, and Grand Prairie hosted them. So now the cycle has come back, and it's going to be hosted in Alberta again in 2019. So then I went to council. At that time, I approached council myself, and I said, Council, I really think that this is an opportunity we cannot miss. Along with the the games, the right to host the games, you have an opportunity. You get capital funds to build things that comes from the federal and the provincial. There was so many opportunities, and I also saw that we were starting to have a little bit of a dip in volunteerism in our community. And what we needed to have excitement about volunteering in our community again. Mm-hmm. And so that we could engage the younger people and show them that there is fun in volunteering. And once you get them involved and they do something fun like the games, then they're going to seek other opportunities out. And then we also have an opportunity, because there was paid positions in there, that we would be able to develop staff people, employment people, and build up their skill levels to be able to stay in our city. And once again, we would be able to create a bigger brain trust of knowledge in our community. And so I went to council, and we did, Shelley Gagnon and myself, along with the city, we did a study on what would it cost to upgrade our facilities, because they had standards that we had to meet, lighting standards or field standards, playing surface standards. And went back to council, and council agreed, said, yes, we'd like to submit a bid. And then that's when we went into the next stage. We submitted the bid. Once again, that was a phenomenal day, as the day that they did the tour for the bid. And that was incredible. We had Ron and Carrie McLean we brought them in for the day. They were like just ambassadors. There is nobody that's an ambassador like Ron McLean and Carrie McLean. Carrie is just over the top. But anyways, we put them on a horse and wagon, and we left. We had a little dinner or luncheon at the curling center, and then we brought them along with the bid committee, the thing, and we brought them in the wagon, kind of along just behind here, as at about 47th Avenue, or maybe, anyways, we went down there, and then we turned the corner onto Ross Street. Once again, an amazing look. The whole Ross Street was jammed packed with a sea of red. They once again figured there was 5,000 to 8,000 people down there. It was just unreal. Val Jansen was an instigator in that. She had just created this circus atmosphere that people came down just to bring their kids to have fun. But it so impressed the committee that Red Deer was, that was the turning point, that Red Deer got the games over Lethbridge that had also bid on it. And then the journey began. Yeah, it was a great journey. I mean, I got to tell you, I had many sleepless nights. I took on the chair position there, once again as a volunteer, but I was putting in like 40-hour weeks many times. And but you know what? I would never say never again. I would never do it again, probably, but I would, if I went in a back life, I would take that opportunity back to have that experience. Through everything I've talked about, Bob, I have met amazing people, and I've made lifetime friendships up. And I think that is a reward that people often don't talk about that, but it is so strong there that my core group of friends is from many of these events. And I think it's just amazing feeling.
Well, when you volunteer, I always remember that lovely expression about joining an organization. It's not the joining that's important, it's what you get out of it. If you contribute, you get that much back.
Exactly.
And when that happens, it makes you excited, it makes the people you're working with excited about it, and makes doing things so much more easier. Because people will just say, yes, I'll do that.
Exactly.
And that's fun.
Yeah, it is fun. And I mean, I always went out of my way to make it fun for people too, to make, that they felt like they were part of the community. And I think that is definitely a key that people have to remember, that it takes a little bit more out of you to extend this welcome and this and to create an atmosphere for these people, but they'll be forever indebted, and then they'll pass that on. That experience on to other people next time they get involved.
Is there anything else you want to add about the actual games and the success of them?
No, it was just, everything is good. I mean, now I'm on to a new role now. I just recently became a board member of the Canada Games Council. So I'm off to Prince Edward Island to be involved in their games and to see how it is. So it's an involvement. It just keeps going, and but I think I got to keep my mind busy too.
Well, those are some of the sports activities and sports-related activities you've been involved with. There's some others that you were beginning to tell me about.
Oh, yeah. Well, in between some of the games, then I had another project that I was approached by, and a couple of community members had been working with Ronald McDonald House. And they were looking at bringing a Ronald McDonald House to Red Deer. And in their data, in their research, the Calgary House at that time found that many of their guests at the house were actually from central Alberta. But what they were finding, that they had no place when their child went back to Red Deer, once they had the procedure done in Calgary, they had no place to go in Red Deer. The parents had no place to go. And so they felt that there was a need for a house in Red Deer. And so they approached me to be, myself and our family, Reg, my husband, and our family, to be the head of the campaign, and the capital campaign. And we did that. And that one was phenomenal. That, once again, a huge learning experience. But we raised $12 million in 15 months.
Ooh.
Yeah.
When I think of Hazel trying to raise money, $3 million or $2.5 million for the library, and how many years it took her.
I know.
I don't know whether that's a case of timing or the people, or in some ways it's the wealth of the community and its willingness to.
It is.
And its ability to contribute. But what a change in just 20 years.
I know. Well, what I think happened, that we've been very lucky for, is that we have had people like the Donalds, we have had people like Bill Olofsson, that have stepped forward and have shown the benefits of philanthropy in our community. And I mean, I just named those two. There are many. Dave Will, and I could just, the Scots group, in combination over the generations, the Vellners over generations, the Lampards over generations, have all built this. I think I was fortunate enough to be able to be in the right place at the right time to build off the work of all of those people, that I was kind of that next generation, and that I was able to take it now to a new level. And so I honestly believe that they set the foundation. But Central Alberta, they set the foundation to create an atmosphere in Central Alberta that there is no place that can raise money like Central Alberta, and there is no place. When I was doing the bid for the 2019 Canada Games, and the bid committee was here, and we had this amount in our budget that says that we were going to raise it, and they just said, like, this is not realistic. And I said, absolutely, it's realistic. And they said, oh no, we can't, we that. But anyways, they said, we believe in your bid anyways. We know that that'll get adjusted. And I said, okay. Do you know that we raised the most money that Canada Games has ever seen being raised? It is just this community is like this. And people get behind events. Last year I was at a Cowboy Kicks event, and
That's strikes me, because it's new to me, in an unusual way, but I've always thought of and remembered the story about the Calgary Olympics of 1988 and how much money they raised, what steps they had to go through to be successful.
yeah,
With David Layton and then
Exactly.
Bill Pratt
Exactly.
running it, but the legacy, it's still evolving.
It is.
With Canada Olympic Park in
Exactly.
Calgary, and I had never thought that. In a very quiet way, something similar has happened in Red Deer proportionally.
It has. It's just amazing. This is an amazing community. I mean, we all already know that Alberta has the potential, and it's the entrepreneurial piece that says, don't tell me I can't do it, because I'll show you I can do it. Right? But it's done, it's like that in fundraising too. It is just remarkable. But people need to feel appreciated. And I mean, Joan Donald is probably one of the people that often said to me, well, and I've worked with her, and she says, make sure you thank them 7 times in 7 ways. And you know what? She's right. I mean, when sponsors feel like they've been thanked and they're appreciated, when you come back to the well the next time, they know that it's good. And I always make a point of being very selective in when I go back to them. Like I always make sure that there is something in there for them, not just for me. So that I will never approach a Nova, or I'll never approach any of my backups, I call them sometimes, unless I know that it actually fits into their mandates, or that it is a peripheral of the mandate anyways, and that they can make it work. I mean, sometimes it's just sheer, they will make it work because the project is just so worthwhile, and it doesn't necessarily check off a box, but they want to be involved because it just needs to be there. And I mean, last year at Cowboy Kicks, we had no idea. Cowboy Kicks is the Westerner Foundation event that helps raise money for the Westerner Foundation, which in turn has 4 pillars in it, and it distributes the money mostly to the Westerner, but it can also distribute it to other groups to help them utilize the Westerner for their projects, whether it's the 4-H's or whatever. And so that's what this Cowboy Kick event was. Well, of course, we were probably one of the first events that was hosted after the real COVID was done, but everybody believed that we could not lose Westerner Park, and recognized that Westerner Park is such an integral part of everything that I've talked about, probably short of Ronald McDonald tells. But to be able to host an event in Red Deer, we have one of the key and premier event centers right at a nonprofit right in our own backyard here.
Well, that's the only reason why the Canadian rodeo competitions came here,
Exactly.
is because of the facilities and the centrality of Red Deer.
Right. Well, and I was part of, I've been part of the hockey, the Memorial Cups, and the World Juniors. I've been part of the Scotties, and nobody can believe the setup that happens there. Like they can have the actually playing field, and then walk next door and have a meal and a beer. And we had the old story, and you and I remember, you just talked about that with the bats that they ran out in the first day.
They ran out, but fortunately it was to get more beer.
Oh, yeah. Totally, fortunately.
By
They would have had a clue on their ass. Yeah, no, we're, Central Alberta has amazing giving power, and we are very fortunate. All nonprofits are very fortunate for that, our events, and they support it, and that is needed.
Well, and as you say, it grows.
It does.
From a small event to a larger and a larger one,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then the sky's the limit almost.
Well, it seems like it at times, but you just have to make sure that you have your ducks in a row, and people will believe in you.
Are there any other missed events that we've looked at, or from a Red Deer perspective, and have not succeeded in, or any other future events that are coming and are just around the corner?
Yeah. Well, probably the biggest missed event that I feel our community lost, and it wasn't really in our control. It was, it was in a couple of years ago when Calgary was wanting to bid for the 2026 Olympics, and the province had made a decision, the governing party at that time had made a decision that the city of Calgary people had to vote on it. And I think I was a bit disappointed in the fact that the provincial government only allowed the city of Calgary to vote on it, because most of the money was coming from the province, or a big chunk of it. I thought we should have all had it. But I digress a bit. But the missed opportunity was that Red Deer I was involved in talks with Red Deer being one of the satellite centers to host an event, most likely curling. Mm-hmm. And I think that was a real missed event for Red Deer. And that, so it's too bad. It was out of our control, and that's what happened. But I think we're going to have some opportunities of some more big ones coming. And it was just announced that in 2024, in January of 2024, we're going to have the Pinty's Grand Slam here. And they will be using Service Arena and be able to utilize Red Deer Curling Clubs, the doorway in between the two, and utilize that. So one side will be the curling, the other side will be your Grand Slam beer house, or whatever whatever the moniker is going to be for that clubhouse or whatever. But it also would give the curlers to have another separate place for sheets of ice just to do some throwing and rocks, which is they don't always practicing.
Or teaching, when you get that assembly of excellent
exactly.
curlers, they can be teachers too.
Yeah, so I was very fortunate to be able to be the contact for that and pull that together, and now I'm really excited. We've got the next generation. Lindsay Planadin is going to be chairing that event, and I'm very excited to watch that and support her. I'm going to just kind of step back and be the mentor and the help her through that sort of and I know Red Deer will make this a success, as it always does.
Oh, how exciting! But I was just thinking of your comments about the adjacency of the arena and the curling rink, and I can remember thinking when that opportunity arose to because of the additional money, or the $550,000 that Red Deer received from the Labatt Briar, that we were able to redo the front of the curling rink.
Yes.
And then prepare for these opportunities, and they don't always happen.
They don't.
You have to, but you have to have a vision. You have to have a thought process that says we can make this, we can make this happen, and we can make it grow.
Absolutely.
And it just strikes me, as just listening to you, how much you've demonstrated. That's so true.
Well, yeah, thank you. It's I think I've had the opportunity. My husband's been a really great support, and watching, with having businesses, I think that I had the unique opportunity to see both sides. I had the opportunity to see that this has to be run as a business, and this, but it's the benefit to the community, and that's we need to marry the two. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what has brought and made successful events in our community.
I think I remember the other side of it, and that is that when to say yes, and when to say no.
Well,
it isn't just I say that yes always.
No, it isn't. It isn't. You just say yes always. Usually, though, I find a way that if I see that someone's well prepared, that there seems to be a solid business plan, and it can benefit our community in some way, that is when those three criteria really need to be together. I get often approached with from groups, and I don't mind spending. I spend a lot of time with nonprofits, and they'll say, well, how do you raise so much money? But when I speak to them about some of the things that you have to do and what you have to have in place, and some get it, and they go on to be successful, but others don't think that that's the right formula, and they try something else. Sometimes they're successful, but most often not. And I think that they have to understand that if you don't have a good business plan, a financial plan, the money's not necessarily going to follow, or it's going to sieve through and it's not going to be enough. And you have to have that plan. And right now with the Red Deer Curling Center, my husband's been working very much with that, and I've been in a support role in that one. And we can see that to make it viable, it has to be a year-round center. And just so that we can keep curling affordable in our community. And affordable, I say that, and that's what we seek in everything we do here, is affordability for our families, because everybody has to have an opportunity to participate. And curling is one of those sports that everybody has an opportunity to participate.
Well, when you, growing up, if you wanted to go skating somewhere, it never cost you.
No.
It was always free. That was
Right.
an opportunity provided by the community. And
Exactly.
it's so nice to see that attitude is now extended to curling.
Absolutely.
Having gone through some of those organizational challenges. that we
Oh,
had
and they're
to
still going
in
through
the
them,
past,
but yeah.
But
yeah.
you end up with a community resource and
Exactly.
people who know how to use it.
Exactly. Exactly.
And on the flip side, you're quite right. There's only so much you can charge for
Yeah.
having a curling game, and it
Yeah.
keeps it reasonable. But you do
Exactly.
need supplementary sources of income.
Yes, yeah, you do. And so that's a whole nother story that we could talk
Yes,
about.
couldn't we? Well, we'll leave that to your husband and I.
Yeah, exactly.
At
Exactly, right.
At a future
yeah.
date.
Yeah, no.
it'll-
It's been an amazing journey. Like, I mean, we've been in Red Deer for 37 years, and 37 of my best years, like it's been a great thing. Interesting, we had 4 children. 3 of them moved back after their post-secondary. They're raising their families here now. The 4th one is in the Army, so he doesn't really have a choice on that where he lives, but the values are still there, and I think that they all of the next generation values are feeling the same way. Recently, I worked with my one daughter, and she just hosted a figure skating competition in Red Deer that had 500 skaters from across the province that came, and she was one of the key organizers of that. So, it's coming. I'm building the next generation.
Well, it's interesting how Red Deer is a magnet in different ways for, of course, different people. But that same thing has occurred in our family with 3 of the 5 boys coming back to Red Deer.
Exactly.
And through the Rotary Club, I see so many people who want Red Deer as their last job or pre-retirement job, so they can stay.
Exactly.
It has a spirit to it, an enthusiasm to it. It's just a delight to see and a delight to use. It isn't restricted by people saying, well, you can only do it this way or my way because that's the way we did it in the past. It's,
No.
I so distinctly remember a chat I had with a chap by the name of John Ralston Saul, better known as Adriana Clarkson's husband.
Yes.
The probably Canada's preeminent philosopher, and we were commenting about how much and how many of the initiatives in Canada come out of the West, and I kind of said to him, I said, well, the further west you go until you hit the mountains, the more enthusiasm, the more people have been attracted to it because it was new, and the people that attracted then have worked together and made major changes to this country, whether it's producing people or ideas.
Exactly.
And it's just so exciting to see in a small community way just how Red Deer's been an example of that.
Absolutely.
I think we in some ways underestimate what impact we're having, or maybe it doesn't matter. It's just so much more fun being a part of the process.
Totally. But I do think people underestimate it, and that was one of the reasons that the city felt that the 2019 Games was a really good platform that they would engage in, is to give that national attention, that we're not just that stop between Edmonton and Calgary. We actually have deep roots here, and we actually have substance here. And that was something we does. And I have to tell you, as I go across the country, I travel the country, and people, there's millions of people that have been involved in the Canada Games. And as soon as you say you're from Red Deer, they say, "Oh, you just hosted those games, and that were phenomenal." And what better? But it made people realize the substance that our community has, and that's what we needed.
I remember. At the time that they were occurring, but more particularly just afterwards, how pleased, excited, enthused, rewarded the participants felt, just as individuals.
Exactly.
And we're, people like Gail Sirkin and so on, were just so proud to be a part of it.
Yeah.
I can. When you bring that together, it's like 1 + 1 = 3.
Right.
The whole is greater than the sum of the parts.
Yeah.
And when these events turn out that way, you just feel good.
Oh, it felt good. I mean, we talked about the game one. We're digressing again, but back to the games. I mean, to me, that was the dream board that I had the opportunity to work with. The brain power that was on that board was just phenomenal, and it was a mixture of our citizens like Gail Sirkin and Ron Woodward, that built so much in our community, and then you bring on the Marty Vellners and the Russ Willads, and the dynamic people that were happening right now, and then you marry all that together, and there was no problem that couldn't get solved there, and the staff had this wonderful resource that they could go to these different board members and say, like, I got this problem, what do you think? And they came up with a solution that was a Red Deer made solution. Again, a Red Deer made solution. I love that term, and but it was.
But it also takes somebody to pull it all together. And Lynn, it's been a delight listening to you.
Thank you.
Talk about how some of these events got pulled together.
Yeah.
And how they got approved, they got coordinated, and I think the other hallmark to them is that they all have been successful.
Well, yes.
So I congratulate you on
Thank
the
you very
ones you
much.
chose to be a party of, a participant in, and particularly for the impact that you've had and the legacy you've left. So,
well, thank you, Bob.
this has
Thanks
been
for
a
giving me this
delightful chat.
opportunity. Yeah.
I quite appreciate it, and I'm really glad. A chap by the name of Phil Hyde said to me a couple of weeks ago at a Rotary meeting. He said, "Are you still writing books?" And I said, "Not really." And he said, "Well, one's needed on the Radford family." I said, "No, but I think I have another solution. I'd love to interview her."
Oh, well, thank you.
I'm glad we've been able to do that.
Oh, yes. Well, I got to say, we've had the years have had its challenges, and it's had its like huge benefits, and I would never change any of it. So I'm very fortunate.
Well, and so is Red Deer.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been a delight.
Thank you again.